Welcome to the Bourbon Husband Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Bradley Jr., and this is The Sixth Pour. Well, guys, I am super excited. First of all, I want to thank you to all my followers, watchers, and subscribers who continue to support me, continue to push the show to go on and on and on. Guys, again, we're trying to get this to the next level, so thank you guys so much. I do want to apologize. This episode is coming out a few days later than what I would have hoped. A lot of reasons behind that, but still no excuse. I'm going to try now to have a new release date where there's some talk and consideration going behind that. Same day every week, new episode gets released, and we may start releasing these every Friday. So there's a lot of discussion about that. I just got to see how that pans out. But guys, I have an awesome episode for you guys today. There's a lot of history, a big experience for me and my beautiful wife Rachel, and a lot of history goes behind this episode. But I do want to let you guys know I have some exciting news coming out about the show. Currently, we are going through a rebrand. What that means is, of course, y'all have seen the awesome artwork we have on the social media pages. Kudos to my wife Rachel and my buddy Blake, who helped us get this thing started with some artwork. But we're going to be releasing the first official logo, the emblem of the Bourbon Husband Podcast here soon. And there's been a lot that's been going behind that. We're going to get that out to the public very soon. We're going through some imagery, some wording, some fonts, but I'm really excited. The vision is there, and my beautiful wife Rachel is the one behind the scenes helping me get that done. So thank you so much to her for all the hard work she's putting into the show. So guys, listen, today's episode is going to be really exciting. So this past weekend, I have to say I single-handedly had the greatest experience when it comes to sports of my entire life. And I've been a part of many great games. I've been in some awesome games, some close games. I've watched pro football, college football, pro sports, the whole 9 yards. I've seen it all for the most part. But this past weekend in Morgantown, the 108th Backyard Brawl, the West Virginia Mountaineers hosted the Pittsburgh Panthers. And I have to say, not only because of the way the game went, but the history behind this game and what it meant to me. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. There's so much that went into it, but the atmosphere, the scenery, the way the game was unfolding, the noise level, the anticipation, the sitting on the edge of your seats, the nail biting that took place, the energy was through. There's no roof, but the energy was through the sky, man. It was crazy. And when I say the experience of my life, I believe it's because of so much history, not just for the West Virginia Mountaineers, not for the Pittsburgh Panthers, but who the Mountaineers head coach is now, and what that meant, what that game meant to him, and the importance of winning this game, and the importance of the Backyard Brawl, the rivalry, but there's a lot of people that were a part of something nearly 20 years ago, 17, 18 years ago. This game changed the trajectory of West Virginia football, and for that matter, Pittsburgh football forever, right? And there's so much history there, and we're going to get into it. So, but before we do, I was deciding which bourbon to have on the show as the sixth pour. I struggled with it because I was going to get the Let's Go series, okay, out of West Virginia, but couldn't find it. I was everywhere. The Let's Go Mountaineers bottle, tried to find it, couldn't find it anywhere. So unfortunately, I didn't have it for this episode, but I guarantee you, we're going to be talking more about Mountaineer football this season. So I'm going to have the bottle once I get it. We're going to have it here on the show, so I can't wait. So, I was trying to decide what was next. What bottle, what pour, how am I going to toast to the greatest football experience I've ever had in my life, the greatest sports experience I've had. So I was looking on the shelf the other night trying to make a decision. I've got some, really high shelves, some good middle shelf, even some good quality bottom shelf bourbons over there. And I'm like, you know what? This is fitting. Let's pull out the Eagle Rare Single Barrel 10-year. For bourbon connoisseurs, you know what you're getting. For non-bourbon connoisseurs, I'm sure you've heard of it. It's an amazing bourbon. It comes out of the Buffalo Trace Distillery. And you know what Eagle Rare is. If you haven't had it, I highly recommend to go out there and get it. For those of you not wanting the bite of a bourbon, this would be a good one to get started with. That's high quality. To get anybody started out there. There's a lot of sweetness behind this bottle. The flavor profiles are really, really, really good. And it's just a very smooth drink. It's a very smooth pour that can go down very easy. Not a lot of heat to it, but you know what you're getting when you have Eagle Rare 10-year. By the way, I would love to get my hands on the 12-year. Working on that. As soon as we do, we're going to open it here on the Bourbon Husband podcast. But before we pour that, again, I want to preface, there's a lot of changes coming to the show, maybe not this part of it, but you're going to see a lot more content put out on different social media pages, different aspects. We're working really, really hard day and night to get this to the next level. So our official logo is coming soon. We're hoping to get merchandise, hats, shirts, glasses, coffee mugs, whatever it may be. We're going to get the brand out there. We're going to let people know what the Bourbon Husband podcast is all about. And I'm hoping to elevate this. I say it on every episode, on every show. We're hoping to elevate it to the next level. So I'm super stoked about getting that logo out. I'm super stoked about getting the brand out there and seeing where this thing goes. By the way, we are having some guests. I know we've only had a couple on here so far. I've got some huge guests lined up. I have some big people in the bourbon industry lined up too. I've had a few meetings last couple weeks, made some good connections. There's a lot of good things, not only coming to the Bourbon Husband podcast, but to our community here in Bluefield, West Virginia. So I'm really excited for what's to come. We're going to continue to grow this thing. And there's going to be some really important guests coming on here in the near future, and we're just trying to pan that out. May also be a part of an opening at a local pub coming up. We're in talks with that too. I'd like to get out there. I'm not going to name drop or nothing right now because I got to see how that goes. But I've been in communication with the owner, and we're going to see how that goes. So anyways, let's get into it. Before I get into the game, before I get into the history, let's go ahead and pour this beautiful bottle of Eagle Rare 10-year. Decent little pop. It's been popped before. There we go. So if you guys have never had Eagle Rare, I highly recommend it. Again, guys, this is age 10-year, of course. I really want to get my hands on the 12-year straight bourbon. And it's just a really smooth pour, really smooth toast. Not a lot goes into it, so yeah, I mean, you get a lot of citrus feel on the nose. Not a lot of heat, a little bit of aged oak. That's where you're getting the 10-year from. You could tell it's been aged with that charred oak. But not a lot of spice to it, not a lot of heat on the nose. Maybe a little bit of honey, vanilla, big citrus, right? Big citrus, maybe some orange peel on the nose. So very smooth. Very, very smooth. A lot of honey, a lot of honey throughout the palate. A little bit on the nose, through the palate, you get some honey on the finish. It's got a medium finish. It doesn't linger too long, but doesn't go away too short. If I would say if there's any heat, you get the oak out of it. But besides that, maybe a little bit of baking spice, maybe white pepper. But for sure, I'm getting honey drizzle, maybe some marshmallow, a little bit of vanilla, a hint of citrus on the palate, not as much as up front on the nose. But yeah, this is a very smooth pour, easy to go down. You get that marshmallow, maybe a little bit of graham cracker with it. Yeah, I mean that's really really good. Maybe Honey Nut Cheerios a little bit, part of that graham cracker and honey, marshmallow, get a little bit of cereal feel on it, which is unique, right? I've never really said that on the show before, but very smooth. Listen, remember we have a 5-barrel rating here on the Bourbon Husband podcast. I would rate this right at 3.6. Well above average. It's an exceptional bourbon. It's part of my collection at all times. It's a bourbon that I could take somebody who wants to get into bourbon and give them that 10-year boldness, but it's not too much heat at all. And it's going to go over very smooth. Like I said, one of the smoothest pours out there on the market for what it is. And let me say this too, it's not too sweet. It's not overly sweet. Something like Travelers out of the Buffalo Trace Distillery. I've had it. To me, and we'll break it open another time on the show, but that's a little bit of a too much sweetness for me. But yeah, 3.6 barrels out of 5, well above average. It's an exceptional bourbon. A lot of people ask me the question, if you got a bottle of Eagle Rare and a bottle of Blanton's. Y'all seen my Blanton's episode on the show where I completed the set. Which one are you choosing? That's hard, right? That it depends on the time you're in. This one, I feel like you're sitting in front of our fireplace near the winter time. I'm gonna pick this up a lot of times over Blanton's, but in the summer, I may go for that Blanton. So it really depends on my situation. I rank them both neck and neck right there. It really depends on my mood. But yeah, really smooth bourbon. Recommend it to anybody out there. Again, for anybody looking to get into bourbon and have any questions whatsoever, please message me, comment on the show, comment, on any social media posts I put out there. Let me help you. Highly recommend this. Smooth, delicious, sweet, not overly sweet. You know what you're getting, and you still get that 10-year aged feel to it. So, but anyways, yes. So let me go back to Morgantown this past Saturday. I decided, when tickets got released to the Backyard Brawl 108th edition, Rachel and I were sitting in the room at the time, and we went ahead and purchased tickets immediately. And her nephew Josh was with us too. So, there's so much aura around Morgantown right now, right? Rich Rodriguez comes back. Let me take you back to December 1st, 2007. My dad and one of my other family members have decided to take us all up to Morgantown for the 100th edition of the Backyard Brawl. This was my first ever West Virginia game in person. And we're number 2 in the country, 1 win away from the national championship game. West Virginia was easily and arguably the best team in the country that year. And we're heavy favorites going into that game. So it was pretty cold that night for me. I thought it was extremely cold. Went back, I actually pulled up the temperatures. I don't think it was crazy, but it was a cold December night. Morgantown, there was a lot of buzz, right? We walked into Milan Puskar Stadium that night knowing that we were the best team in the entire nation. Rich Rodriguez was at the helm. He had built a powerhouse at WVU. You had Pat White, Owen Schmidt, Steve Slayton, and all of these guys just playing strong ball, right? So anyhow, we get in there and we're competing to get to the national championship. You got Pitt coming in, backyard brawl, arch rival, and it pretty much, we knew we were going to win the game, right? This can't go wrong. I think Pitt may have had 4 or 5 wins, if that season. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and look. But we go into that game, and in the second quarter, Pat White dislocates his thumb, and something fell off at the very beginning of the game. They just played sluggish football. They did not play West Virginia Mountaineer football, and we were just playing terrible football that night. So we lose that game, and I could tell you right now, there's no other feeling that I've ever had. Again, this is my first ever college football game, my first ever West Virginia game. In fact, I had never been to a college or pro game before that. I've never felt the way I did in my entire life, before or since leaving Milan Puskar Stadium on that dreary December night. Never. It was dreadful. Never had that feeling walking out of a football stadium. Never had that feeling watching a football game on TV. And I've been disappointed. I've seen some close ones. I've been a part of some really disappointing moments, sports, history when it comes to my teams. But I've never had that feeling. So fast forward to the aftermath of this a little bit. A few weeks later, maybe a month later, not even that. Going into the season, there was a lot of buzz about Rich Rodriguez's future. Is he going to go to Alabama? It seemed like Rich Rodriguez was going to be the next head football coach at Alabama. He turned down the job. He said, no, I'm a Mountaineer. I'm staying out in West Virginia. I'm at the helm here. And so even after that loss, we felt like, okay, that's disappointing. Let's go win a bowl game, see if we can redo this. Well, leading up to that, Rich Rod, and me as a kid did not know this at the time, didn't find it out till years later, really the what went behind all the aftermath and drama and stuff in Morgantown with all of this. But he had been trying to get resources, not a pay raise, nothing like that. He had been trying to get resources for better recruiting for the players. That way we can consistently do what he had been doing. And that's compete for national championships and build a college football dynasty. And he had been pushing WVU to give him the resources to do this. And they would not do that, right? And so a few weeks later, my dude departs to Michigan. Big contract with Michigan, and immediately became the most hated man in the history of West Virginia sports, right? For years looked at as the absolute arch nemesis, the biggest backstabber in the history of the state. And a man, many people, including me when I was younger, because I didn't understand the complexity of everything, who said this man will never be allowed back in Morgantown, never be welcomed back with open arms. We hate him, we can't stand him, we don't want him back. Well, years go on, I get older and wiser, and truth comes out, and I'm like, man, that's really, I hate that he left, and the way he left, I think, was wrong. And, he was persuaded not to talk to anybody, talk to the press, do a press conference or nothing. And I think that's where a lot of bitterness came from, is the way he done it. And the timing came after the worst loss in program history, right? You're one game away from a national championship, and there's no question. They went on to absolutely hammer Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl in that year in 2008. No doubt about it, West Virginia was going to win the national championship. They were the best team in the nation at the time. You couldn't stop these boys, right? Hard edge, spot the ball, right? Rich Rodriguez, Pat White, Owen Schmidt, Steve Slayton, Pat McAfee. But the aftermath was so scandalous, right? That nobody ever thought he would come back. I think the way he done it could have been done differently, but I understand what went behind it. He wasn't given the resources he asked for, which laugh out loud, years later, guess what West Virginia did? They provided all the resources. Dana Holgorsen came in and had a decent run with West Virginia, a lot off of the backs of that old recruiting regime of Doc Holliday, Bill Stewart, all them boys from the Rich Rodriguez era, and Geno Smith, Tavon Austin, Stedman Bailey, Bruce Irvin, all these guys continued that tradition of winning in Morgantown for a long time. But then after those recruits died off, we hit a bad era in football, boys. Dana Holgorsen kind of went off, and then here comes Neal Brown. And, wasn't that excited, but wasn't against the hire. I seen the potential, right? Trust the climb. Well, we get into it, and not Neal Brown's last year, but the year before that, after that season ended, I had put a post out. For years, rumblings and rumors, not loud, but whispers. I wonder if Rich Rodriguez would ever be allowed back at WVU. Will we welcome him back? We miss those days. We miss that Rich Rodriguez era. We miss the traditions. And when I say traditions, I'm not just talking about winning football. Rich Rodriguez was, grew up in West Virginia. He went to school in West Virginia. He was a WVU alumni, played defensive back for the Mountaineers, played under Don Nehlen, become the head football coach. Rich Rodriguez is the reason we've seen country roads after every win. He started that tradition at WVU. He built WVU football into the powerhouse it is, or was at the time anyway. And through the years, no, Rich Rodriguez never allowed back. No, I could see it wasn't completely his fault, but I just don't see it ever happening. And then it went into, maybe he will be allowed back. But for years, that conversation came up here and there, and for the most part, the answer was no. So, I'm sitting there. This is the last few games of Neal Brown's season, not his last season, but the one leading up to it. And I'm texting my old head football coach from Tazewell. He had played under Rich Rodriguez as tight end at the time at WVU. So he had a pretty good connection there. And I'm talking to him, and he looked at me, and he's like, because I stayed in communication with this coach. I still do to this day. And he looked at me and said, DB, I would not be surprised if Rich Rod comes back one day. I'd love him to. The alumni, the former players want him back. So I'm like, man, I would love that, but I don't see it happening. So we're sitting there one night having a conversation through text message. He's a recruit or a scouting coach in Georgia Tech now. And we're sitting there having a conversation about the current state of West Virginia football and how, having someone like Rich Rodriguez back would be huge for the program and huge for the fans and huge for the brand, especially going into the NIL era of college football. And he said, man, listen, I think Rich wants to come back home. And he literally sent me a screenshot of his conversation with Coach Rodriguez through text message. I'm not going to get into what was said in those text messages. It's not my business. But I was like, man, that would be awesome. But it was wishful thinking. Crazy. A few months later, during this time, I had went back, watched a Pat McAfee episode on the show, the Pat McAfee show. And there was an episode with Rich Rodriguez. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, this may not be out of the realm. This may be a possibility. The further along we went, the more rumblings happened. The worst state WVU football was in. I'm like, I could see this happening. So before Rich Rodriguez was even talked about, going into this football season when Neal Brown was let go, before any of that happened, the previous year, almost to the date of Neal Brown getting fired, I put out a post on Facebook. And it was a picture of Rich Rodriguez, and it said, what if, ... What if? And I got some feedback, some of it good, some of it not so good. But a lot of people's like, dude, there's just no way that'll ever happen. Well, I had seen enough to believe that if they didn't let Neal Brown go right then and there after that season, that things may work out for Rich Rodriguez to come back home. People call me crazy. Well, following year, Neal Brown was getting let go. We know that. Ram Baker came in, and we know that's the direction that he's probably going to go, is let Neal Brown go. That happens immediately. Out of nowhere, the rumblings were loud. The, expectation was that Rich Rodriguez was going to come home. That's all Twitter or X, whatever it's called now. That's all that was on there. That's all that was on Facebook. It was talked about on the Pat McAfee show. Donors were talking about it. Our local community was talking about it at the time. I'm like, this noise is loud. The noise for Rich Rodriguez to come back home is extremely loud right now. And sure enough, guess what happens? Rich Rodriguez came back home. So, me and Rachel decided that we're going to purchase tickets to the 108th Backyard Brawl almost immediately when he was signed as the head football coach at WVU. We probably would have won anyway because we were talking about it. But there was so much history there, and this is the game we had to go to, right? Not knowing what was in store for us. Again, let's go back. My first ever West Virginia game ever as a kid. December 1st, 2007, the 100th Backyard Brawl. We lost that game 13-9. One game away from the national championship. Rich Rodriguez's last game as the head coach of the Mountaineers. Nearly 2 decades later, almost 20 years later, he comes back. The 108th Backyard Brawl scheduled to be played in Morgantown on 9/13. The opposite of what the score was when we lost in 2007. Let me get into what happened this past Saturday in just a moment. I'm going to have another sip of this. But I had no idea what was in store for the Backyard Brawl this year. I had no idea it was going to go the way it did. And I'll tell you, it's a full circle. I looked at Rachel in the stands Saturday. When we were singing Country Roads after we had won, I had looked at her with tears in my eyes, and I'm not scared to admit it. I had a little bit of tears. I thought back to my dad. I thought back to all the trips to Ruby Memorial Hospital as a little kid, because that's where I had my heart procedures done. I thought back to my mom and my dad. And that game, and Rich leaving, and what Mountaineer football meant to me. And then that was my first game. This is her, my wife, the love of my life. My wife's first game is the Backyard Brawl. And guess who's back? Rich Rodriguez. And guess what the date is? 9/13. We lost 13-9. There was so much. I looked at her with a little bit of tears in my eyes when we were singing Country Roads. I'm like, this is a complete and full circle moment in my life that I can't even explain to you what it means to me. But we'll get to the game and the craziness and the atmosphere and the level of just insanity that was going on in Morgantown in just a moment. But back to this Eagle Rare. Yeah, very smooth. Opened up a little bit. Definitely get the 10-year aged out of it. A little bit of oak, but man, I'm getting a big honey feel on the palate and the finish. A little bit of vanilla, not deep in caramel. Almost, not quite s'mores because I don't get the chocolate out of it, but some marshmallow, maybe graham cracker, honey nut Cheerios out of it. So it's a delicious, again, 3.6 barrels out of 5. Delicious. So anyways, me, Rachel, and Josh, her nephew, and a co-worker of ours, we were headed into Milan Puskar Stadium, right? We had got down there Friday night. We tailgated all day Saturday leading up to the game. And we walked into the stadium, And I was so excited for her to see it for the first time, which they have redone the field and the scoreboard and a couple other things in the stadium this year. But when I walked in, been there plenty of times since, right? That dreary, dreadful night in 2007, been there many, many times since. But something felt different, right? And it was probably that fact that this was my wife's first Mountaineer game, and Rich Rodriguez was back at the helm. So anticipation was building all day long. People were ready. We were playing Country Roads, Sweet Caroline would play on the radio, Eat Shit Pit. It would just all day. The anticipation was building. And so we get to the game. West Virginia strikes first with the touchdown. And it seems like things are going to go well for them. And then we give Pitt a lot of opportunities to score. We turned the ball over. We played a little bit lackadaisical throughout the game. We made quarterback changes after halftime. But let me get into this. The atmosphere was crazy, right? And, the players laying down, the players getting injured, a lot of calls from the officials. Man, those refs were getting booed out of the building. It was bad. And then late into the game, and I'll get to it in a moment, I don't know if y'all seen it or not, but man, the players of Pitt would just, every play, just about have an injury to stop the clock. It was getting out of hand. But the game, we strike again in the second half. They strike. Then they take a 10-point lead, and we got like 6 minutes left. And it didn't get quiet. And typically in Morgantown, right, over any stadium, but when you go down 10 and you're not throwing the ball well, you're running the ball okay, but you're not moving the ball enough to put up good points. You got 6 minutes left, 10-point deficit to overcome. It's your arch nemesis. Typically, the environment's a little, come on, can we do this? Man, let me tell you something. That stadium, the people in the stadium, including me, I lost my voice throughout the game. I've never lost my voice like that in a football game in my life. I've lost my voice before, but not like that. I've never screamed as hard and as long and as consistently as I did Saturday. But, yeah, man, it was buzzing, dude. Nobody slowed down. The fans were going nuts. We were ready, and truly, a testament to all Mountaineers out there, especially the ones at the game. It was insanely loud, even when we were down 10. So when Nico and them go down, they get close to scoring. They kick the field goal, come back, get a stop. Then they score that last touchdown to put it in overtime. You knew. It's almost instantly you knew that this game was over. West Virginia was going to win the game. I was hoping we'd play defense first because our defense had been hammering Pitt's offense. They threw 2 deep balls on us. They got 2 big plays on us. But past that, the defense held strong. Our offense was giving them many, many opportunities to score. And I think that's where the, nature of the beast came. Dude, if we wouldn't have turned the ball over and played as bad as we did offensively at times, West Virginia probably walks away with a 2-3 touchdown win in this game. And we were a 7.5, 8-point underdog, by the way, leading into it after the loss to Ohio. But, man, I'll tell you, we get there, we score the touchdown to put it into overtime. The noise level was insane. So on my Apple Watch, and I seen other people's Apple Watches, it was saying it was too loud to leave, right? It was deafening in that stadium. Man, we get it into overtime. We play offense first. They get down, 4th and 1, they get the first down. They punch it in, touchdown. I've never heard a stadium so loud as what I did when we were on defense in overtime. Non-stop. Even in the commercial break, when the plays were dead, in between plays, it was insane. Man, I've never in my life experienced anything like I did this past Saturday. And the noise level was through the sky, man. I'm telling you, Milan Puskar Stadium was bouncing. It was blowing up. And, there was just the amount of cheering, the amount of, just noise that was coming out of that stadium, and the anticipation. And then they get a stop, they get a sack, they nearly get a interception. They nearly get a fumble recovery, and then that last play overthrows the receiver in the flats. That's it. The team stormed the field, and it was insane. Country Roads comes on, and we're sitting there, and I'm swinging, got my arm around my beautiful wife Rachel, and we're singing Country Roads. And that's when I looked at her. I said, "This is a full circle moment for me. This was my first game. Now, nearly 20 years ago, this was my first game, and now you're my wife, and I get to be a part of your first game with you." And then Rich Rodriguez is back, and it's this exact game on the date of the score reversed. So much history, so much meaning behind it. I've never felt that good at a sporting event in my life, and I know, to some people it may be stupid to be caught up on this, but let me tell you something. West Bagos, Virginia. Let's go Mountaineers. How about them Mountaineers? Montana Semper Liberi. I'm telling you right now, if you were a part of that and you were in Milan Puskar Stadium on September 13th, 2025, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I've been part of some loud games in my life. I've been a part of some crazy atmospheres, some crazy finishes, wins and losses. Never in my life have I been a part of anything like that. It got, to the point to where the players typically, they'll sing Country Roads, high fives, go back to the locker room. My dude Rich Rodriguez came over to our section, and just screaming, "Let's go!" I'm not going to explicit shit was coming out of his mouth, but saying "Let's go," pumping up the crowd, hype. That game meant so much to Rich Rod, and I'm so glad Rich Rodriguez is the head football coach of our West Virginia Mountaineers. That pumps me up. I'm so glad he's back. I'm so excited for what's in store for West Virginia football. And to have my wife there, her first game, it was just incredible, guys. I cannot tell you how much it meant to me to be a part of that. And any Mountaineer fan out there that was at that game, that's following me on here, get this out there, right? I want to talk to other Mountaineer fans. It was insane. My goodness, it's so much going into it, but I can't express to you what that meant for me and all Mountaineers out there. I know the environment, the insanity level out of that stadium was insane. And I've never been a part of anything like that in my life. And I'll be honest, it's going to be hard to top that. I don't think, and I truly mean this, because of the history behind it, because of what it meant to me, because it was my wife's first Mountaineer game, and just the coincidence behind the things surrounding the game. Rich Rod's back. It's the backyard brawl. That was my first game, and the date, 9/13. We lost 13-9. Whatever it may be, man, I don't know what it was, but I don't think it can be topped when it comes to sports moments. I truly don't. But cheers to the Mountaineers. Cheers to Rich Rodriguez and company, that entire coaching staff. Cheers to the Mountaineer Maniacs. That student section was going insane. Cheers to all Mountaineer fans. Cheers to my beautiful wife, Rachel, who I got to experience that with, and her nephew, Josh, and some of our friends. And I'm telling you, that was the greatest sports moment of my life. The greatest sports moment of my life happened this past Saturday, September 13th, 2025. So I can't express to you guys the atmosphere and what it was like that day in Morgantown, that evening, that night. And I don't think we'll ever experience that again because, again, maybe not the game, maybe not the loudness of the stadium, but what it meant, the history behind it, what went into it. But yeah, I mean, what better bourbon, right? Eagle Rare 10-year to celebrate this, to celebrate that Mountaineer win and the game and the insanity level of Mountaineer football, man. Rich Rodriguez, there's nothing like it. I can tell you that right now. West Bagoff, Virginia. How about them Mountaineers? So I want to thank you guys for, again, just sitting down, letting me tell you that story and letting me go over what it meant to me and the insanity behind it, right? There's so many things I could say about it. This show's probably lingered a little bit. I'm sorry it's coming out a little late, but don't forget, we have some huge things in store. We're going through a rebrand right now. Logos coming out, merchandise that's coming out, social media. We're going to have shorts, reels, more posts, more outlets. We're going to have some huge guests coming onto the show. We got some important things coming up in the world of bourbon, especially for this community. That's a little hint. That's as much as I'm saying. So, yeah, guys, stay tuned. Share, like, follow, subscribe. Get it out there. Help me grow this to the next level. And until next time, until the 7th pour, thank you guys. Enjoy.